God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son,
I know the plans I have for you,
that whoever believes in him shall not perish,
plans to prosper you and not to harm you,
but have eternal life.
plans to give you hope and a future.
The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
You're listening to the Shepnaz Podcast, a podcast by Shepherd Church. Everything we do at Shepherd is to connect our community in a meaningful relationship with Christ. We're expecting great things. My name's Joey. I'll be your host, and on today's episode, I'm joined by Paugh, lead pastor of Shepherd Church, and Joe Aleshire, producer extraordinaire of this new project. Today, we'll be introducing what we hope to accomplish with this podcast, preview the show schedule, and talk about the upcoming 21 days of prayer and fasting that starts on January 9th. But enough of this intro. Let's dive in and get to it. All right, guys. Well, welcome in. As we begin this podcast, let's take a second and kind of go around the table, introduce ourselves, and kind of talk about what we do at Shepherd. And maybe if we'll just talk about what our families did for Christmas, how Christmas was, and any New Year's resolutions that you or maybe someone in your family is getting into this year. So I'll start because I'm already talking. I'm Joey, so I am the executive pastor of ministry here at Shepherd. Been here for 5 months, and still working on getting acquainted with everything and getting my feet wet. If you were around Christmas time, you know that I love Christmas, and so we have all sorts of stuff that we do for Christmas. This year's a little different because we were spending our first cold Christmas in quite some time. This is the coldest it has been on Christmas for us in the last decade. Was I think 60 degrees. So this Christmas was colder.
Pretty cold for us too.
Yeah. It was colder this year. So and then Bethany worked on Christmas Day, so we just had to make things the way they work. So I routinely fail at New Year's resolutions. So I think we will just talk about trying to make it. So I don't really have any concrete New Year's resolutions just yet. So
Good. My name is Rob. I move tables, straighten chairs, preach on Sundays occasionally.
Yeah.
Chair straightening.
So I'm the pastor, one of the pastors, and I love working here, being part of this church family. For Christmas, we just spent time with our families. I turned a year older, so now I'm like 39 again. No, actually, I'm 56. I just turned 56.
Oh, man.
So my best days are still ahead of me, I hope. And for New Year's resolutions, I am going to stick to this. I am not going to eat vegetables all year. Anything green. Nice. Any vegetables that are green, they're out.
Let it be resolved.
I'm not having it. So I think I can do that without even trying. So I think I'm going to succeed.
You need some humility added to that.
No, I just know myself. If it's green, I usually don't eat it.
All right. I'm Joe, and I've been helping out at church and a lot of tech stuff. I guess if you were looking for one particular title, I am kind of the media coordinator. So things like podcast and helping out with structure of the website and production for the live stream and Ultra Live and all that kind of stuff. I get involved in a lot of that and the social media as well. And New Year's resolution's never really been one to do that kind of thing. But
good man.
Yeah, it's just, do what you're going to do. You don't have to promise it to anybody. Just do what you're supposed to do. So Christmas was different for us this year because now that my kids are getting older and they have their own families and everything, they're actually wanting to do Christmas on a different day. So that was a little different for us, celebrating on Monday instead of Sunday. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we ended up having 2 days with Christmas, Sunday and with a little bit of the family, and then Monday with everybody. So
That's good. Yep, as you get older, things change, don't they?
It's just Christmas every day for me, so it's fine.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that Joey is on staff now because he likes Christmas so much and he decorates. Yeah. And I don't have to. I love it.
Well, hey, so maybe one of our resolutions is a podcast. So this is a new podcast. We want to talk about, as we dive in, sort of kind of the why behind what we're doing here, what the goal is, kind of what are we gonna try to do through this, and maybe the schedule. So, Rob, would you it was just like a random staff meeting, a few months ago where you were just like, someday we'll start a podcast. That'd be cool. Like, would you kind of maybe talk about why you would want us to do something like this at our church and kind of what your hope for this is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, actually, when I said that at the staff meeting, that wasn't the first time I thought about it. We'd actually talked about it for some time, about doing it. And the idea behind it is that we would generate some content to keep people engaged during the week. Sometimes if you only come to church on Sunday, then you have 6 days between Sundays. And so being able to find some encouragement, some direction during the rest of the week, what we thought would be encouraging. The other thing is that now that we have done so much on media with videos and services and all of that, that we have content that would be great to be able to share and get out there for other people who maybe can't show up on Sundays. So we're really shooting for engagement. We just want to get people involved and engaged. And we were talking about a podcast, and most people have some downtime when they're in the car driving here and there. And we thought that would be a good opportunity to go ahead and say, hey, let's do a podcast, and maybe only be 10, 15 minutes long or whatever every day, but something just to engage people, keep you thinking, connected, encouraging, that kind of thing. So that's kind of where we'd been talking about it for a while, but I did randomly just say it one day, and then it just and Joe had actually been working on it before I said that.
Yeah.
So when I said that, he goes, funny, you should say that. And he pulled out some images of, that he'd been working on for it already. So the Lord was kind of maybe in all of that, the timing for that for us.
Yeah, I kind of felt a lot of the same feelings, that we were trying to have a way that we can engage as a church and a community on a daily basis, and to be able to, maybe look a little deeper into some of the subjects of the sermons, or just some other things that are going on in the church.
Because they're so deep.
Yeah, they are.
They're so deep.
So deep.
Yeah.
And when you get that deep, you just need more time to talk about it.
I do need more time to talk about it.
But and it did. The timing was kind of amazing, because I just kind of like felt the Lord kind of talking like, this will be the next step. And so I was having some inspiration for some graphics and stuff, and I started just piddling around with it. And this was actually while Rob was in Hawaii, and when he came back, it was during a prayer time. He sent me a Slack message and said, hey, you want to stick around afterwards and we'll talk about a podcast? And I replied with the image that I'd been working on.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it's great to see this happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to that a little bit, I think for me, as the dynamics of church and spiritual formation continue to change, like in our communities and in our country, I really think that one of our responsibilities as pastors and as the church is to provide tools for people to kind of take their next steps and kind of stay engaged each and every day. And this is something that, like you had mentioned, Rob, this is sort of it's something that could give some engagement throughout the week. One of my favorite quotes is about church is that if it's not working on Monday, then it's not working on Sunday. And so we want to provide tools and the ability for God's people to become more like Him each and every day. And this is just one of those tools, and something that I think that we will probably enjoy doing as well.
Yeah. The other thing, I think there's a lot of stuff going on around here that if you're only here on Sundays, you miss so much of what's happening throughout the week, and you can only say so much on Sundays because you only have so much time. Yeah. So there's incredible people here, incredible stories. I mean, we want to interview people who are part of the church so you can get to know them. If you come to one service, you may not know somebody from another service. And just because you come to a service doesn't mean you know everybody in that service. But there's some incredible stories and testimonies that of what God has done in people's lives, and to be able to share those stories with our congregation, I think would be encouraging to get to know each other even better, not just staff, but everyone who's a part of the church. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of those stories and getting those stories out there. I mean, I'm just from what I know from stories that have not even been told, there's some amazing stories, and I think it'll be a real big encouragement to the congregation, and there's a lot of stories I don't even know that would, when we start hearing them, will just be a real big encouragement to all of us.
So going a little bit along with that, let's talk a little bit about some of the types of episodes we want to talk about. So we're gonna have stories of people. We're gonna talk to people, hear about what God's done in their life, and kind of like where they were before Jesus, where He's brought them, and maybe some of the great things He's done. We're also gonna talk more in depth about kind of the application pieces of what we talk about on Sundays. Joe, you want to just talk about a little bit about what we're looking for when it comes to kind of breaking up those sermons into some more bite-sized pieces and using them throughout the week?
Well, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but Rob spits out a lot of content on Sunday morning. And so to ingest it all...
There is a fair amount of spitting. I do have to clean my
Yes.
iPad off a little bit.
So, I mean, to get it all in one shot, sometimes we have to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we're hoping, and even Rob's talked about how he's going to structure his sermons and so forth, so that it'll be a little more workable for that kind
You
of
said
setting.
it in public. Now I have to do it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think you've already done it. I think you have been doing it for a little while, ever since you started thinking about it, because we kind of see how maybe the sermons might break down into segments and then be able to talk about those segments a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and the idea will be that but what people probably don't know is, though we bring a lot of content on Sunday, there's actually probably a page worth of notes that gets cut because you just can't say everything. So there's also opportunity.
I'll shrink the font a lot first, and then it still doesn't fit.
That is actually very hard to believe, but
so then it's hard to.
we'll trust
Then there's
you.
cutting
It's
that
true.
occurs.
It's true. I was joking because when I was able to bring a message a few months ago, it's one that I have been able to preach a couple of times because it's done a lot in my life. And the first time I wrote that message, I go by word count for where I want to be on, because I write manuscript and I go by word count, and I like to stick around 5,000 words because that gets about 40 minutes when I have 5,000 words. The first time
You
I
talk slowly.
yeah,
It is.
yeah, that's the difference. So Rob's probably more about 75 to 8,000. But when the first time I wrote it, I finished it and it was about at 9,000 words. I literally had to cut the sermon in half if I was going to be able to preach it on a Sunday. And so those are things that, like, we're going to have opportunities to go just a little bit deeper, and depending on what we're talking about, give a little bit better, not better, but like more direct application, and talk to people who are living those steps in their life about what they're doing to connect more to Jesus and to grow in their faith. So talk a little bit, maybe Joe, this is probably for you. What's our schedule going to be like for this podcast? What are we hoping to kind of start with and like stick to? What would people be able to expect when they grab their phones in the mornings?
Well, what we're hoping for and what we're planning for is that we would have Monday through Friday, we'd have a release of each episode. And we're going to take Saturday off, and we're assuming on Sunday either you catch the message in person or online. It'll also be available for you to get that afterwards as well. But the weekday podcast, and we'll have those loaded up so that hopefully at the strike of midnight, if you want to be awake at that time, because you're just so anxious to hear
I don't want to be awake then.
what is happening next, we'll try to make sure that those are available. Now, they are going to be available on just about every podcast service. So we're thankful to be able to get that set up and distributed to everybody. Also, we'll probably be, you'll see clips on social media. We'll probably that's one of the reasons why we're not just doing audio, but we're also doing video, so that we can kind of do some cross-promotional on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and drive some audience back to the podcast. And hopefully, if you're listening today, you will help us with that cause by spreading the word to other people.
5-star reviews only.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
All right, and our goal are 10 to 15 minute episodes. Really, hopefully, maybe your drive to work is about that. I'm worried that we're already going to go over on that one for here. So let's keep going. We're going to dive into
this one's longer though on purpose.
Well, yeah, we're gonna kind of go to the next piece. What we really want to talk about today is we're going to set up the next 3 weeks, kind of a podcast, but also of spiritual formation here at Shepherd. Is that we are getting ready to begin on January 9th, 21 days of prayer and fasting. And the idea behind this is that we as a community would all really focus our time in praying and fasting, seeking God in this time. We have a resource page that you can get to at shepnaz.org/21 days. We're also encouraging people to grab a book. You can grab it in the lobby on Sundays. You can order it for yourself on Amazon if you'd like. We're not making any money on it, but we've got that. So we're going to talk about that too. So what I want to talk about quickly maybe is kind of what's kind of pushing us toward a 21 days of prayer and fasting format, and kind of what are we looking for people to be able to gain from this experience. If you want to talk about that, Rob?
Sure. Yeah, so we're planning on starting this on January 9th. We'll talk about it on Sunday, January 8th, but then the 9th is when it actually starts. And we have done different reading emphasis during the year. The last couple of years it's been, one year was the Bible Project. Last year we did the Immerse Bible, and it was the whole Bible. This year, I'm just going to try to start off with the first 3 weeks of everyone in the church reading the same book. The book we're doing is Life and Death, The Power of Words. It's a brand new book that Rob McCorkle wrote and just came out. And if you're familiar with Rob McCorkle, he's the one who did our revival in March and then was part of the prayer summit for us. And it's a really powerful book about our words and how important they are, and that our words can either bring life or we can speak, curses and death over people, and spiritual death. And so we want to read that together, but then we also want to give some real specific prayer structure, something for you to pray about regarding our church, something to pray about regarding our community and our nation. We'll have a specific prayer every day, or a passage of scripture that you can pray that scripture specifically during the day. So just having all of us doing the same thing for 21 days, I think will be real powerful. There are some real specific things we want to be praying for our church, some things coming up, decisions to make, finances, new initiatives, those kinds of things. We want to just keep us all together and really relying on the Lord. In the past, we've fasted from New Year's to Easter, and that's typically 60 to 70 days, which is a long time. But if you're fasting vegetables, it's not hard. But it's always been that kind of a fast. And so this year we're just doing something different, 21 days, specific, focused, and a little bit shorter, putting the devotional book with it and kind of doing all that together. So hopefully there'll just be some power and synergy in us all doing the same things together. So yeah, we're going to start that on Monday, January 9th, just a couple days away.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand, the book has 21 chapters, so we're planning on doing a chapter a day.
Yep. They're only about 3 or 4 pages each.
So
it's big font.
Yes.
I've heard from Zach that he said that this was actually something very readable for him, and he doesn't typically like to read stuff, so that's good to see.
He's throwing Zach under the bus like that.
Oh, don't worry. I think he's going to do it himself. We are not going to cover every chapter of the book in the podcast. So like whatever day we happen to be on, if we're on day 1 of the fast, we're going to cover the first chapter. If we're on day 2, it's going to be chapter 2. But like when we get to the weekend, when we're not doing episodes, you won't hear us talking about those chapters. Those will be on your own, and then we'll be back on it the following Monday.
Right. Yep.
So I've been a part of 21-day fasts in the last church I was a part of. We did it twice a year. What I loved about it was that it always seemed that at the end of that, God kind of unveiled a vision for our church, but it didn't happen until the end. And we would have great clarity about what he wanted for us as a church. What I love about fasting is it's actually something like Jesus didn't say like, if you fast. He actually says in Matthew 6, he says, but when you fast, like it's an assumption that God's people would fast and that they would pray, that they would seek God. So can let's talk a little bit just briefly maybe about like, what's the purpose of fasting? Like, why do we fast? We could talk about things to fast, but really like, what's the purpose of fasting? Do you want to, Rob, if you want to?
Sure. So fasting the word fast really just means to give something up. And so what we're doing is giving something up. There's not like great power in just giving something up, but it's a sacrifice that you're making. And the idea is that when you give something up, you spend that time that you would have been doing that particular thing, whether it's a meal or maybe you're fasting social media or the internet or something along those lines, that you replace that with time with the Lord to spend allowing him to talk to you and you listening to him and you speaking to him as well. So it's kind of it's giving up. I always like to say it's giving up so I can go up in my relationship with the Lord. So I'm giving something up so that I can spend more time with the Lord, listen to him more, be more focused in hearing. And then as a result of that, when I hear from him, I respond in obedience and my relationship with him grows deeper.
I wanted to circle back to like when you were talking about Matthew 6. What I find interesting about that is like it's in a list of 3 other, it's like when you pray, when you fast, when you give. And certainly the church over its history has always said, yeah, you definitely have to pray, you definitely have to give. And then fasting's kind of been like, and if you can throw that on top, that'd be great too.
Yeah, like a bonus.
And but it's spoken of in the same passage with the same importance as the other 2 areas. And for me personally, I've had a lot of great experiences with fasting, more so with my family. Like I would challenge, and we've done this for years, I might engage with one of my kids and say, hey, I'm going to do a 21-day fast. You want to fast with me? And not only are you growing closer to the Lord during that process, but you're also growing together, whether you're doing it as a couple or as a parent or just a friend, an accountability partner, something like that. It can really be an opportunity to be a bonding experience with that as well.
When we fast, what we're doing is we're denying ourselves something that we rely on, right? So if it's food, we rely on food. And the idea is we take that away and we say, God, we're gonna rely on you a little bit more. We're gonna rely on you to sustain us. Or if it's social media, if you want to do a soul fast, and I'm gonna give up social media, because for a lot of us, we find our identity sometimes in what we see on the internet, and we every little second we have, my phone just it gave up a couple weeks ago, and I had to go somewhere where I sat in a waiting room. And I didn't know what to do. It's like
count tile.
It used to be that you read all the old, like the year-old magazines, but ever since COVID, they don't have those anymore because you can't touch anything. And so I just sitting there, like looking at people, and obviously they're probably feeling awkward and they're like, "Why isn't he just looking at his phone like everybody else?"
Yeah. Yep.
But like we become so reliant on certain things. What we're trying to do in fasting is say, I'm going to give this thing up that I hold closely to myself, so that I can rely on God more and let him sustain me, let him guide me. And really it's a practice that the Bible it just assumes that we're going to do that as the people of God. So we're going to rely on God more than the things that we typically rely on.
So if you're going to decide to fast like social media and stuff, there will be an exception for the church social media and for the podcast. You can still engage in those things.
Yeah, not allowed to fast church. Not allowed to fast reading your Bible. Like, it's the opposite, right? You gotta Okay, so Joe, tell them where maybe they can learn a little bit more about fasting from our website, and maybe where they can grab some resources from us.
Well, go to Shepnaz.org. That's the main church website. Yep. You can do /21 days. You can also do /podcast. And while I'm on that subject, we have an email set up for podcast@shepnaz.org. So if there's things that you're hearing that we're talking about and you want to engage with us on that, you can send us an email. If there's good comments, we'll be sure to repeat those. If there's bad comments, we'll just pretend we didn't get those.
Leap.
All right, guys. Well, before we kind of get to the end of this, is there anything else that they should know about our 21 days? I think we're going to have time for people to be able to come in and pray if they want to come and pray with us during the week.
Right. Yeah. So every day during the week, the sanctuary will be open for an hour with a staff person there just for you to come in and spend some time. Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays, it'll be 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. So, sometimes you have to get up and get going for work, and thought maybe it'd be easier to pray before you go to work. And so Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, the sanctuary will be open from 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. for you to come in and pray with anybody who's there. Pray on your own, but there'll be other people there. And then Wednesday night and Thursday night will be open 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. For you to pray as well. So that'll be for those 3 weeks. Really the second, third, and fourth week in January. And then one other thing that we did not say is that at the end of the 21 days, it will be January 29th, and we are planning on a praise and worship night on that night, Sunday night. So there'll be praise and worship together in the sanctuary, and a time of prayer to wrap it up and share what we're hearing from the Lord, and just really go after it. So looking forward to that.
I was going to mention, if you are coming into the sanctuary to pray and you're like, okay, I'm here. What am I supposed to pray about? So for each day on the website, when you go to /21 days at shepnaz.org, there'll be a different day guideline that'll have a reminder to you what the personal prayer focus is, what the church prayer focus is, and what the community prayer focus is. And then also we'll have some links to some previous message series that we've done. Like when Rob did a message series on the Lord's Prayer, he also did one on, more recently, like the hour that changed the world. Is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was paying attention.
It was a 2-hour message
really
series
memorable.
on the hour that changes.
And in fact, we'll have the 1 hour reposted, and it'll actually take you through an hour.
Yeah.
Of
different directives every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Well, that is going to do it for episode 1 of the Shepnaz Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your audio so you don't miss an episode. The next episode will drop on Monday, January 9th. It'll be day 1 of our 21 days of prayer and fasting. We're expecting great things. Hope you're going to join in. As always, you can learn more about what's happening through our app, social media pages, and at shepnaz.org. For Rob, Joe, I'm Joey. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. This January, we want to invite you to participate in a 21 days of prayer and fasting at Shepherd Church. Each day we'll have prayer prompts, scriptures to read, and even times at the sanctuary will be open for prayer. Plus, on the Shepnaz Podcast, we'll be walking through Rob McCorkle's book, Life and Death, The Power of Words, with a guest each weekday. You can get a copy of that book through our website at shepnaz.org /21 days, in the lobby on Sundays, or you can find it for yourself on Amazon. All the resources that you'll need for daily prayer and scripture prompts can also be found at shepnaz.org /21 days. And mark your calendars for January 29th as we close out the 21 days with an evening of worship together at Shepherd. Again, don't miss the opportunity to press into what God is doing as we kick off the new year here at Shepherd.
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.